We will still wait a few minutes until we are starting with the event. So also for our viewers, hi and welcome, and we'll start in a few minutes. We're just going to give everyone time to join.
So the candle lightning is at the end, right? Just, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, hold on, give me 1 second, yeah?
My menorah is too small that people cannot see it. Only they can see the candles.
Everyone will know. They'll recognize what they see.
Once again, hi to everyone who has just joined us. We'll start in a few minutes until everyone has had time to join. We will start any minute now. We're just waiting to be live on Facebook and then we'll start. Okay, we are now also live on Facebook. Amitai, I think we can start slowly.
Wonderful. Welcome everyone. Chanukah Sameach and happy holidays. It's a really huge honor to spend this time with our esteemed speakers and with everyone who's able to participate, whether directly on the Zoom or on the Facebook live event. We're going to start with some introductions of Jewish Movement for Uyghur Freedom and European Union of Jewish Students, and then we will dive directly into the event. So very briefly, my name is Amitai Buzaglo. I'm the movement coordinator and co-founder of Jewish Movement for Uyghur Freedom. We are an international and multi-denominational Jewish movement organizing to inspire Jewish communities and Jews around the world to mobilize in support of our Uyghur brothers and sisters. It's an honor that we've been able to develop a very deep relationship with 𝐒𝐲𝐠 and with many of the speakers who you will be hearing from today. And we will elongate the kind of work that JMUF is a part of at the end of the event, because really the core is to hear from each of our speakers. And it's my honor to pass on the event, pass on the next introduction to my good friend Binny.
Thank you so much, Amitai, and thank you so much to all the speakers that are here. My name is Bini Gutmann. I'm the president of the European Union of Jewish Students. The European Union of Jewish Students, 𝐒𝐲𝐺𝑠, is the umbrella organization of Jewish student unions in 36 different European countries, and the democratic and peer-led representation of around 160,000 young Jews all over Europe. And one of our core values is that Jewish rights are human rights and human rights are Jewish rights. That's why we and the European Union of Jewish Students, together with the German Union of Jewish Students, started almost a year ago to stand up against the Uyghur genocide. Because time and time again, we hear at different commemorations, politicians, important people, and many just normal Europeans saying never again. But for us, never again does not just mean commemorating the crimes perpetrated against our ancestors, but never again also has to mean action right now. So when a genocide is happening in 2020, and that is what's taking place right now, we as young Jews are saying never again right now. And with this event, with our campaign that we have started almost a year ago, we want to raise attention throughout the world to call on the world to finally stand up against the Uyghur genocide. For that reason, Jewish students all over the world on Human Rights Day, that this year coincided with the first day of Hanukkah, engaged in a global action day. And in 30 cities around the globe, activists plastered one of the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in front of Chinese embassies, forcing Chinese officials to step on them, showing how China tramples human rights every day, literally. At the same time, we also, alongside many others, including some of the organizations that are represented here, called on the United Nations to finally act. We want to now show you a quick video from part of the action from last week.
Okay, I'm sorry for the way I
Dear Secretary General, 72 years ago today, the world came together to say never again. With that in mind, the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 72 years later, the world is not free of human rights abuses, but China is committing one of the most extensive and systematic human rights violations since 1945. Millions of Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities are held in concentration camps, exploited, abused, and dehumanized. On this day, the International Day of Human Rights, young Jews all over the world set out to show China's trampling human rights, literally. Today, activists from all over the world reminded China's government of the 30 articles in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The world needs to act, and like us, the international community can't remain silent. We urge the United Nations to assign a special rapporteur to monitor the crimes being committed against the Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities in the People's Republic of China. Because every day, the vow of never again is increasingly vanishing in China's concentration camps. We call on the United Nations to live up to their founding principles right now.
Thank you so much. And this was part of our action day. There's a second video that will be sent in the chat in a minute with the rest of the cities that participated. But overall, we called on the world to finally act. But just in closing, I want to say that today is Hanukkah. And Hanukkah obviously has a lot of similarities with what is happening to the Uyghurs right now, in the sense that the oppressor wants to eliminate the culture and wants to make sure that the culture can no longer exist. But Hanukkah also shows that even in the darkest times, that there is still hope, that there is still light. So this Hanukkah, as Jews, we remember the atrocities that were committed against us, but we also want to stand in solidarity with our Uyghur siblings. So this Hanukkah, we are trying to make sure that we can shine a light in human rights, and we have to make sure that the world finally acts, because never again is indeed right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Binny. And I want to thank all the activists from really around the world who took time to plan the route, to invite their friends, to show up, and to drive home a very important message that I think this event will only amplify. This is really just the beginning. We're not just saying that Hanukkah is the time of the year in which these things are commemorated within Jewish memory and within the Jewish life cycle. This is something that should become, we are arguing and we are hoping for, important across Jewish communities around the world at all times of the year, to stand in solidarity with the Uyghur people. To briefly overview the program, we're going to hear from truly remarkable speakers, amazing individuals and representatives from the Jewish and Uyghur communities. And we're going to have members of both 𝐔𝐸MUF and 𝐒𝐲𝐠 share introductions for each speaker. And in the middle, we're going to have a wonderful opportunity to hear some music and some remarks about the music from the very acclaimed and brilliant musician Rahima Mahmoud. And I want to just mention that the title of the event, I want folks to think about that throughout. It is that through the darkness, we must bring light. And it is something that we know very vividly from Hanukkah in the Jewish community. And it's something that every single day our Uyghur brothers and sisters are thinking about, praying for, fighting for, and we are here to join them. And thus I will begin, and I will pass it on to Sophia to introduce our first speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm a movement coordinator with the Jewish Movement for Uyghur Freedom, and it's my honor to introduce our first speaker. Reyhan Assat is an attorney and the president of the American Turkic International Lawyers Association. She is also a chair of the Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs DC. Reyhan's practice focuses on anti-corruption, human rights, and business. She has been recognized as a senior fellow with the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. While at Harvard, she also taught a course on the emerging market. Reyhan is a frequent speaker in national and international law conferences and also testified before the Canadian House of Commons and congressional bodies. She has been featured in the New York Times, BBC, CNN, Voice of America, The Hill, The Globe, and Mail, the UK Mirror, Al Jazeera, and many other media outlets. Her writings have appeared on Foreign Policy, NBC, The Hill, etc., in addition to many legal journals. Reyhan is a tireless advocate for her brother Ekbar, an entrepreneur who has disappeared into an internment camp, as well as being a tireless advocate for the rest of the Uyghur community. Additionally, at 𝐔𝐸MUF, we are so honored to have her serve on our advisory board.
Reyhan, you are muted right now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Sophia, for the very kind introduction. And as we celebrate Hanukkah, there's something about the Uyghur culture that I would like to share with you. We celebrate each and every day togetherness. And I think today's theme couldn't be better for today's event. As Amitai and Bini have mentioned, the festival of Hanukkah is one that holds a very special significance to the Jewish people. It represents fighting against religious persecution from the Greek Seleucid Empire, who were controlling the land at the time. Within this story is the idea that there's always lightness in the darkest of situation, manifested in the underdog of this story of the similar Maccabee army fighting against a major and mighty empire. And then a second time that they find the tiny jug of oil that lasts 8 nights when it ought to have lasted only 1. Now, after hearing the story, I thought to myself, how can I apply these messages to myself during these challenging times? My brother Ekbar said, a celebrated entrepreneur once held as a model citizen and alumnus of the State Department's most prestigious program, fell victim to the Chinese government's concentration camps, just like my fellow Uyghurs. Now, these themes are truly timeless. The idea that it's not about the size of the fight, but the size of the heart of the fighter. When one puts their faith in themselves and their closest friends and family, and even kindest strangers, we are left stronger knowing that anything can be accomplished if we try hard enough. This is something that has carried me through these past few years as I continue to fight for my brother Akbar and all of the other Uyghurs that are currently being persecuted in the Chinese concentration camps. Everyone is who involved in this great mission of equity and fighting for human rights, freedom of religion, and a freedom of expression are a member of this collective family. These modern day Maccabees who are standing up against the modern day Seleucids. There hasn't been a day that I didn't think about my brother. Sometimes it feels like securing his freedom is impossible, as I am up against a very cruel government and people with desperate heart. It's not easy to always keep positive thoughts. Then this week, I'm reminded of the wise words of Chief Rabbi Mervis, reflecting on the oppression of Soviet Jewry. Change eventually came because over time, ordinary people spoke out, even when those suffering were of another faith, unknown to them, and living on the other side of the world. So with these wise words, I do want to share with you that in this time of despair and darkness, I do see the light in every day. And as this month, it seems like I'm not allowed to share a screen. Okay.
Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. This month, and I do want to share this because I started a campaign called Be With Akbar during holidays. And these are wonderful people. These are our Jewish friends from all around the world, are being with Akbar in this moment of him living in the darkness in the Chinese concentration camps as they celebrate Hanukkah. And these wonderful human kindness touch my heart every single second and give me the much needed strength and energy to continue this fight. And look at these people, like, you know, they come from a different face, different age group, and different walks of life, but they came together because of their kind heart. And another group that I do want to mention, and this is a Jewish group called, and I really wish everybody get to know them. There's a UK bubble team, and they're wonderful young kids, a new generation of leaders who are shining a light on our struggle and fighting just as equally as hard as everybody else, like the Uyghurs. And then there is the Jewish Movement for Uyghur Freedom, very kind-hearted, students-led movement that deserves my every respect and admiration for their courage and leadership. Another crucial component of this holiday is the idea of celebrating with family. Jews from all around the world are lighting the menorah together, singing festive songs to give thanks to God for his continued protection and celebrating with traditional foods as a way to grow even closer together. Of course, this year's celebration is slightly different because given the coronavirus pandemic, but the bonds between family remain stronger than ever. We see the immense sacrifices that people are going through to ensure that their loved ones are staying healthy and safe, that those who are at risk are safe from the harm of the virus, even if it means that they won't get to give them a hug this holiday or hand them a present in person. It is something that is hard to fathom. After all, holidays are always about sharing love with one another. It has a sobering effect on people to help them truly appreciate what they had and to help them cherish what they are missing out on when they are unable to experience what is the unquestioned norm. Now, in this year, as in many others, the Uyghurs are also unable to share in the joys that the holidays have to offer due to their incarceration in the Chinese brutal concentration camps. It is these bars and barbed wire fences that hold them from their loved ones and the freedom they deserve. I'm sure that Jewish people can understand their pain, knowing all too well the hardships that were endured during the Holocaust when they too were unable to celebrate joyous holidays. I have heard the stories of great sacrifice and the great lengths that prisoners in the Nazi concentration camps went to celebrate Hanukkah by using threads of those infamous striped clothing as wicks to try to get some sort of light within the darkness of religious persecution and ethnic persecution. And it makes me wonder if my family and the fellow Uyghurs are trying to do the same, trying to find at least one spark of hope within the deep blackness of hatred and intolerance. And something tells me that one day, and I hope it's soon enough, like the Maccabees on Hanukkah, we will find our joy, our tiny jar of oil, and will shine brightly and peacefully for all to see and appreciate. But for that joy to happen, we must come together in solidarity, as our tormentors are too cruel and ruthless for us to fight it alone. In this darkness, in this moment of despair, I am grateful for all the Jewish friends and people from all parts of the world who came together in one mission to free the oppressed. So thank you for each one of you for being a light for the Uyghur people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rayhan Assad. Good evening also from my side. I am Alessia Gabbianelli. I am from Rome, Italy, and I'm currently sitting in the board of vice presidents of 𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐴. I am very pleased to introduce Honorable Erwin Kotler. The Honorable Erwin Kotler is the founder chair of the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, longtime Member of Parliament, international human rights lawyer, counselor to prisoners of conscience, and Emeritus Professor of Law at McGill University. Professor Kotler, the floor is yours. You're muted, Professor Kotler.
Sorry. Thank you.
Professor Keller, you are once again muted.
Let's see. Do you hear me now?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, let me begin again. Thank you for those kind words of introduction. I've had the pleasure over the years of participating in 𝐒𝐲𝐠 forums, and I'm delighted about your approach of Jewish rights are human rights and human rights are Jewish rights. I was very moved by the testimony of Rayhan, who really brought forward the pain and plight of the Uyghurs and the importance of solidarity, acting in unison on their behalf. And I'll get to that in my remarks further, because Rayhan and I had the privilege of testifying with her before a Canadian Parliamentary Committee on these issues. But I just want to mention, because it was referenced, that we are meeting in the immediate aftermath of UN Human Rights Day of December 10th, and all that that symbolizes for our meeting today. But the day before that, December 9th, was Genocide Prevention Day, whose slogan was to be, and whose objective was, never again. Yet never again, tragically, has become yet again, again and again. And we see this most dramatically with respect to the particular mass atrocities that are targeting the Uyghurs. And yesterday, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, of which I'm one of the co-chairs from Canada, hosted a forum on the sidelines virtually of The Hague on justice for Uyghurs. It was to highlight an initiative before the International Criminal Court to bring senior Chinese officials responsible for these mass atrocities, for these acts of genocide, forward for prosecution and indictment. But the most compelling testimony of that forum yesterday was the testimony of Uyghur survivors themselves. The testimony that reminded me of Rayhan's very compelling testimony, as I mentioned before, our Canadian Parliamentary Committee, where just before we were to testify, I saw chilling footage then, of which I was reminded of yesterday, footage of Uyghurs with shaven heads, blindfolded, shackled, herded onto trains for the headed for the concentration camps. And that underpinned my testimony then, and I would say today, that what we are witnessing to are mass atrocities that are acts constitutive of genocide under the Genocide Convention, where we have therefore a responsibility to both prevent and hold accountable those involved in these genocidal acts, which include the mass incarceration of over 1 million Uyghur men, women, and children as young as 13 years of age, the most brutal incarceration of a minority since the Holocaust, where, as the survivor testimony tells us, they are subjected to assaults, beatings, torture, rape, murder, in effect, part of the acts that constitute mass atrocities and genocide. The second is the mass incarceration, not only mass incarceration, but the mass sterilization of Uyghur women, of coercive population controls, which has dramatically reduced the Uyghur population. The third is the forcible separation of over 500,000 Uyghur children from their families. The fourth is the state-orchestrated incitement to genocide, where the Uyghur religion is characterized as a malignant tumor, where there are orders to root out the Uyghurs, to eradicate this cancerous tumor, to ensure that there's no mercy to be shown, to wipe them out completely. And I'm just abstracting from some of the many insightful assaults with respect to the targeted Uyghur minority. Number fifth is the massive surveillance state underpinning what Rayhan herself has called in an article which she co-authored with Yona Diamond, our legal counsel to our Wallberg Center, the world's most technically sophisticated genocide. And finally, the massive state-sanctioned assault by Chinese authorities on Uyghur memory, religion, culture, identity, as reflected in the destruction of mosques and the like. Indeed, as I cite these acts constitutive of genocide, I'm reminded of the words of Holocaust survivor and Nobel Peace Laureate Elie Wiesel, of the danger of silence in the face of evil, that indifference always means coming down on the side of the tormentor, not on the side of the tormented. Indeed, what makes the Holocaust and the genocides that followed, whether it be the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda up to the Uyghurs of today, what makes these genocides so unspeakable are not only the horror of the genocides themselves. What makes them so unspeakable is that they were preventable. Nobody could say that we did not know. We knew, but we did not act, whether the Holocaust, Rwanda, Darfur, Srebrenica, and now with respect to the Uyghurs. And so it's our responsibility, appropriately enough, meeting as we do on Hanukkah, symbolizing as it does the festival of freedom, of hope and light, of the triumph of the few against the many, to at this point, anchored in the universal message of our common solidarity in the fundamental freedoms of religion, expression, and the like, to not only expose and unmask these mass atrocities that are constitutive of genocide, but to act upon them, to prevent them, and to hold those accountable for engaging in them. And let me just summarize with a series of one-liners of the actions to be taken. With this, I'll move to a close. Number one, parliaments should replicate the action of the Canadian Parliament Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Human Rights, which held hearings, two-day hearings on the pain and plight of the Uyghurs, and unanimously determined in their all-party report that what is happening to the Uyghurs are acts constitutive of genocide. Number two, that called on the United Nations through the UN Human Rights Council or otherwise to establish an international, independent, impartial, investigative mechanism, unfettered, that will visit the Xinjiang region and secure further evidence and witness testimony. Number three, impose Magnitsky sanctions on Chinese officials responsible for these mass atrocity crimes. Four, prohibit the import of the produce of forced labor and sanction corporations with supply chains linked to forced labor. Number five, to expedite refugee applications in our respective countries. Number six, to take up the case of Uyghur political prisoners. And here I mention and join together with Rayhan with regard to her brother Ekbar Assad, that provide us really with a human face that behind the tragedies and mass atrocities. And so may this Hanukkah festival of freedom, hope, and light, may it inspire and underpin the advocacy, as Rayhan put it, of our collective family. And may this collective advocacy, inspired by Hanukkah, secure justice for victims, accountability for human rights violators, the whole, as I said, inspired by the festival of freedom of Hanukkah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Cutler. Jonah, we're looking forward to your introduction.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm from JMUF. I'm the communications coordinator, and I'm honored to introduce Mr. Mustafa Aksu. Mr. Mustafa is a program coordinator for research and advocacy at the Uyghur Human Rights Project. His research interests focus on language policy and surplus labor transfer in East Turkestan and Turkic languages. He obtained his undergraduate degrees in linguistics, languages, and cultures in China, and a master's degree in Turkey. Mustafa also attended a graduate program in the Department of Central Eurasian Studies, Indiana University, Bloomington. Mustafa has spoken on the Uyghur crisis at universities, churches, mosques, and synagogues. He was the key organizer of the first Uyghur panel in the USA on mass incarceration, China's radical and dangerous policies in Xinjiang at Indiana University. He taught intensive Uyghur at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Summer Language Program, served as a modern Uyghur grammar book developer at the Center for Languages of the Central Asian Region, and as outreach staff in the Center for the Study of the Middle East at Indiana University, Bloomington. Before moving to the US, he lived and worked in China, Turkey, the UAE, UK, and Singapore. Mr. Mustafa, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Shalom, Hag Samech, Ani Samech Maad, Lehagog, at Hanukkah 𝐸𝐴𝐸𝐴. As a person of faith, I'm very happy and honored to be here with you today, and thank you for your invitation and for the nice introduction. And as introduced, I have been giving speeches at different occasions, including synagogues, and I've been getting enough support from the Jewish people, and I would like to show my gratitude here, and thank you so much all for your support for the Uyghur cause. And I hope one day will come, and I hope that I don't have to deliver speeches like this, because I believe and I hope that our people will be free to enjoy their basic human rights. It's very meaningful for the Uyghurs to celebrate the courage of the Jewish people in the face of actions of Greek Empire to crush them as a people. Like Uyghurs today, the oppressors force them to eat pork. Like the Uyghurs today, Jews saw their sacred places of worship desecrated and demolished. Like Uyghurs today, those who refuse to assimilate face torture and death And of course, there are so many other examples. And the Jewish people suffered terrible losses, but a small band of people fought to keep their traditions and culture alive. And in the end, they couldn't be completely defeated. So this happened more than 2,000 years ago. And we take the inspiration from the Jewish people, and the Jews fought to survive as a people of 2,000 years ago. And the Jews survived even the Holocaust 75 years ago. To celebrate this miracle against all odds, give us hope. We Uyghurs will continue to fight for our survival. Today, we take hope that our children and our children's children will be able to live in freedom in our homeland and celebrate their Uyghur identity, tradition, and faith, hopefully in the near future. And by this chance, I call on the governments to take urgent actions to stop the genocide of the Uyghur people, and I call on United Nations itself to break its shameful silence. And we, the Uyghur people, have faith in ourselves, faith that we will never give up. And we can hold our heads high, and we are fighting for what it is right. And I want to thank everyone who's joining today in solidarity with the Uyghur people. Haya, mamash naim liot kan, hayim imkulhem. Baut shutefet ha Uyghurin ve ham Yahudi. Yaholim lehasik harbi, kedi lavi shalom ve harmonia leolam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa 𝐤𝐸𝐴. Very nice. Toda rabba, very nice Hebrew. Appreciate it. My name is Semi Short. I'm the communications officer of 𝐒𝐲𝐠, and it is my honor now to introduce to you Ruth Messenger. Ruth Messenger is the global ambassador of the American Jewish World Service, an international human rights and development organization, which she ran from 1998 until 2016. She works with the 𝐒𝐲𝐠 in response to international disasters and focuses mainly on teaching leadership and moral courage to current and future clergy and organization CEOs. Additionally, Messenger does social justice and organizing work with several different nonprofit organizations focused on human rights, voting rights, race equality, immigration, and environment. Previously, Ruth had a 20-year career in elected office in New York City. She's married to an educator and has 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Ruth Messenger, it's my honor to pass the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Sami. It's my honor to be on this panel with those of you who are both fighting on the ground for your human rights and for the many, many students that are joining across country lines, across lines of difference to aim to stop another assault on people's rights, another genocide, and to show the strength and power of your generation. But at the same time, I just want to say it's a special honor to be reunited on a screen with my good friend 𝐸𝐸𝐿, who has been fighting with me against many genocides and for human rights going way back. And I am in awe of the work being done to protect the future lives of the Uyghur, and I just want to thank Rayhan for that beautiful opening and introduction and the drama of it. The American Jewish World Service works actually in 18 countries supporting grassroots efforts fighting for human rights. We don't work directly with the Uyghur because we know of some other group in the Jewish community that's doing that work. But I would just mention that we are the lead organization fighting for the rights of the Rohingya, which is another fiercely attacked religious minority that's undergoing ethnic cleansing. For me, the issue is the broadest picture and the responsibility, I would like to say, of all humanity, but given my personal background, I would say the responsibility of the Jewish community to fight for those who are marginalized and those who are oppressed. But it is Hanukkah, and Rahima started with, I think Erwin picked up the notion of spreading light. And people talk often about the fight that was symbolized the beginning of Hanukkah, the fight of people for their freedom. And then the miracle, and the miracle is often described as the miracle that the oil that was found lasted for 8 days. So I just wanted to say that there's another interpretation, another rabbinic commentary that says actually the miracle was the decision of the Maccabees to light the light, even when it didn't look like there was enough. So one way of thinking for all of us who are doing this work is that the miracle is that knowing that the world is such an imperfect place, we nevertheless find the emotional energy and the moral courage to step forward and to act on behalf of the human rights of any group that is threatened, even though we don't always know how successful we will be, whether we will be able to build a movement. I want to share some observations from wise people in the Jewish community mandating this sense of obligation. One is from Rabbi Heschel, who said, over and above personal problems, and this is a universe of time when a lot of people are facing personal and health problems, over and above personal problems, there is an objective challenge to overcome inequity, injustice, helplessness, suffering, carelessness, and oppression. And in honor of my friend Erwin, I will read you a quote from a distinguished Canadian woman, Rosalie Arbeller, from the Canadian Supreme Court, who said, the 3 key issues of human rights are that indifference is the incubator of injustice, that it's not what you stand for, it's what you stand up for, and that people must never forget how the world looks to the vulnerable. So part of what we are doing here, what we are engaging here, is that we are trying to imagine ourselves and then hear the actual stories of the Uyghur, to understand what it is like, indeed, to be the vulnerable, to think in terms of our own histories, whomever we are, in terms of the Jewish history of the Holocaust, the ancient Jewish history. We know something about being marginalized, about being oppressed, about being victims of ethnic cleansing. But what we know, frankly, doesn't matter nearly enough unless we also act. And so for me, that's the element of moral courage. That's the individual decision that everyone on the screen has made to step forward. That's the decision that are being made in the Union of Students to step forward and to say, this is what we have an obligation to do, precisely because, one, we know what it's like to be on the receiving end of this level of hatred and victimization, but also because it is our legacy, our role in the world is to stand up for the other, to be willing to take those risks and to act always and wherever we are for human rights. And there are people that I know who are like, yes, but these people are sort of so far away. You know, it's like there are problems here at home. And the danger always is that we retreat. We're all guilty of this, too far into our own bubble. Our own country is having problems. Our own community is having problems. We have a family issue. We have a health issue. But we are collectively the people, because people need to be there for each other, to step out, to remember, to another great quote, the words of Rabbi Joachim Prinz, who said that neighbor is not a geographic concept, it's a moral concept. So that's what is at issue here. It is a moral concept. Every human being in the world is our sister or our brother, and therefore every human being in the world whose human rights are being threatened, who's being subject to various forms of, and it's an escalating ladder of intolerance, discrimination, physical violence, and death, simply because of who they are, where they live, what they believe. They are, each and every one of them, our responsibility, and none of us can do this alone. And what's powerful about this engagement today, this event and this screen, is that people are stepping forward and organizing to stand up for the Uyghur and to say, enough, we meant never again. And we need to show that we meant it by being sensitive to every place where human rights are being trampled on and violated. So I hope, in honor of Hanukkah, everyone engages in her or his own miracle of being willing to step forward, to accept the obligation. For me, it's a Jewish obligation to be there for the other, to see humanity in every person, and to be sure that nobody's rights are being trampled while I am doing nothing. I close with one more word of text, my favorite text, because it's so
Ruth, you were muted. Since you were about to share the text, can you please share the text with us by unmuting yourself?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a more exciting text when you can hear it. If a person of learning participates in public affairs and serves as judge or arbiter, which is what each of us is doing when we step forward for others, they give stability to the land. But if they sit in their home and say to themselves, what have the affairs of society to do with me? Why should I trouble myself with the people's voices of protest? Let my soul dwell in peace. If one does this, they overthrow the world. So let us not contribute to overthrowing the world by sitting in our own bubbles and being sure that we don't need to stand up for the other. We always do, and we always can. And that's the strength of this movement on behalf of the Uyghur. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Ruth. It's an honor to have you speak with us. It is also my honor to introduce Raima Mahmoud. Raima is an Uyghur singer, human rights activist, and award-winning translator of the poignant prison memoir, The Land Drenched in Tears. Her latest work includes working as a consultant and translator for the ITV documentary Undercover Inside China's Digital Gulag, shown in July of 2019, which won many major awards, including a BAFTA TV International Emmy on Current Affairs in 2020. Currently, she is the UK project director of the World Uyghur Congress and advisor to the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. We now have the honor of hearing one of a small recording of Raima's work, and then we will hear Raima sort of reflect on that piece and on some of her work shortly after the video.
I am moved by my own song. I'm almost crying.
Көп рахмет. Chiroyli aytibsiz.
Rahmat.
Hakikaten chiroyli qildi.
Chiroyli means beautiful in Uyghur. So thank you very much, and thank you for this wonderful introduction. And it's a joy when I, don't have to talk very heavy subject, but instead just to sing. That's how I should do every day. But the situation put me into forced me into this front line of fighting for my people day in, day out. And just listening to my own songs, it gave me pleasure. So just want to talk a little bit about the song. The title is 𝐷𝐴𝐴. 𝐷𝐴𝐴 is a river in the south of the Uyghur region, the East Turkestan. And we call 𝐷𝐴𝐴 is the cradle of the Uyghur civilization. But 𝐷𝐴𝐴 also referred to here the most notorious labor camp during the Cultural Revolution. So many young Uyghurs sent during the Cultural Revolution, most of them were the intellectuals, writers, poets, singers. And so this song is actually reflect what the farewell when people were picked up and sent to this camp. So the lyrics, farewell, loved ones, I have left for the banks of 𝐷𝐴𝐴. Farewell, roses of my desire that I danced with growing up. I have left for the banks of 𝐷𝐴𝐴, and tirelessly I shall labor. If you come to 𝐷𝐴𝐴, with flowers I shall adorn you. It's a very hidden, it's written in a metaphor because it is impossible for people to express the true feeling, horror, fear. So here, say, tirelessly I shall labor. They know the labor camp, that many people didn't make it in the end. So this is a song, is a one of very symbolic song that it also reflects now when we look at what is happening to my people. I would like to just finish with a poem. I don't know if people read about it recently that traveled the world, by Abdulkadir Jalaluddin, one of the most famous poet, writer, and philosopher. And I met him in person when he came to SOAS as a visiting scholar. And he was detained. I believe it was in mid-2018. And this is one of the poems that someone who shared a cell with him in the camp and managed to recite and then spread it. So this is a poem written by Abdulkadir Jalaluddin in the prison camp. In this forgotten place, I have no lover's touch. Each night bring darker dreams. I have no amulet. My life is all I ask. I have no other thirst. These silent thoughts torment. I have no way to hope. Who I once was, what I've become, I cannot know. Who could I tell my heart's desires? I cannot say. My love, the temper of the fates, I cannot guess. I long to go to you. I have no strength to move. Through cracks and the crevices, I've watched the seasons change. For news of you, I've looked in vain to buds and flowers. To the marrow of my bones, I've ached to be with you. What road led here? Why do I have no road back home?
Thank you so much, Rahima, for your touching words and your beautiful music. My name is Elisheva, and I am the coordinator for campus affairs for the Jewish Movement for Uyghur Freedom, and I'm calling in from Montreal, Canada. It is my honor to present 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 and the founder of Uyghur Times Agency, currently based in Washington, D.C. He left his homeland in 2017 to study at Haifa University in Israel. His research interests include the ethnic policies of the Chinese Communist Party and Uyghur activism. While he was studying abroad, the Chinese government demanded he return to China. Tahir went instead to the United States, fearful for his safety and that of his family. His wife divorced him, concerned that she would be persecuted for connections to him. More than 20 of Tahir's family members have been sent to concentration camps, and he has lost contact with them and with his 7-year-old daughter, Banu. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mr. Tahir.
Thank you so much for having me. I simply say Toda Rabba for all of my Jewish friends, and Shalom Chaverim, Samich Hanukkah. As other speakers have previously told about the general situation, it's really happening, a real genocide against our people. The pretext and excuse that Chinese government using against our people is a totally blatant lie, which claims that our people, Uyghurs, the most of them are violent, or there is a strong terrorist activities happening in many parts of the region, which Chinese government has been using to carry out this ongoing genocide against our people. As a person who lived in the region for more than 30 years, I can assure you that our people is one of the most peaceful, civilized, friendly, and hospitable people that I have ever met in my entire life. I went to a lot of places in the Middle East. I met a lot of cultures, people in the United States, but I can assure you that our people, my people, the Uyghurs, are one of the most peaceful, civilized, friendly, and hospitable people. Our people, when I was very young, my parents taught me how to treat the people from different background, whatever their religion, race, culture. I have witnessed at many occasions that my parents helped the elderly Chinese people, donated them food, money. And I have seen a lot of documents in Chinese when I was in college in Urumqi, the capital of Uyghur region, that the Uyghur parents have adopted a lot of Chinese kids who are abandoned by their parents. So when I was there, my people showed the hospitality and friendship to Chinese people. But later, the Chinese government, when they started to expand their global strategy by One Belt, One Road initiative, they have started to crack down on Uyghurs. It's the genocide is part of the global strategy. It's hegemonic global strategy because they believe different ideology, different culture, different values can be a threat to their dictatorship, to their ultra Han nationalist values and communist ideology. So they started with the extermination, the identity and the unique culture of our people. For example, the 20 people in my family, all of them are very well educated. They have their own business. My brother, Adil, 2 years younger than me, he has a transportation business. He used it to run the bus business from my county, Poskam, to Kashgar prefecture in the south. And my stepmother, Tuhan, she was a fashion designer. And my uncle, he was a film producer in the local the government. None of them ever been to any Muslim states, which China labeled as radical countries like Saudi Arabia or Egypt or somewhere else in Central Asia or in North Africa. None of them are not religious. None of them are religious. As other speakers have testified, that most of the people are being persecuted just because their unique identity, just being Uyghurs. When it comes to our current movement, our current campaign across the globe, I would like to say that the Uyghur people in every country right now, they are doing their best to expose the Chinese crimes against humanity. And they are trying their best to raise the awareness, with giving testimonies, speaking to the media, protesting in every street in front of the Chinese communist embassies across the globe. And they have been writing in many prestigious media outlets, and they are posting so much the facts to expose the atrocities on social media, and they are doing best. At this moment, what our people need is what we are seeing from our Jewish friends, which is standing for us, which is very big support and encouragement for the people are experiencing the most horrible atrocities. So I think there are 4 dots that connect our people. First of all, the same experience. The Jewish people had experienced it most inhuman genocidal policies during the World War II. And that made us feel very sad before this genocide starts to ourselves. Like 2015, 2014, we have seen so much articles in Uyghur society, in Uyghur publications like the 𝐇𝐚𝐧𝐮𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐡 magazine. When I was there, I have seen so much Uyghurs focused on what happened to Jewish people during World War II. So this same experience could connect with the Uyghurs and the Jewish people. When I was in Jerusalem in May 2015, at the time I haven't realized that Chinese government was carrying out this genocidal policies against my people. So when I was in Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum, I was shocked, surprised. Like I was sad until 2 weeks. I told what I have seen in those museums to my people through the WeChat. At the time it's open. Yeah, that was the first thing that connect the Jewish people and the Uyghur people. The second thing that connect the big admiration from Uyghur community towards the development and the spread of Jewish people to build their own country and the contributing to the development of the world, of the whole world. And many Uyghurs have wrote the books about the Jewish spirit and their way of life, their how the Jewish people became so stronger after they became independent, especially after their fight to existence, and ultimately became independent. So all of those things provided a big admiration to Uyghur community about the Jewish people. And many said, even there wasn't, even at the time, there wasn't the genocidal policy very openly, expandingly started. But Uyghur people said, we can learn a lot from the Jewish people, their spirit, their struggle, their fight, and their creativity, everything. That was the inspiration for me to go to Israel to study at Haifa University, not only the Jewish culture, but also the other subjects like international politics, which I had intended to take if I had continued to be there. So that was the second thing that can connect the Uyghur people and the Jewish people, the admiration from the Uyghur people toward the Jewish people. The third thing that the Jewish support and their assistance to Uyghur cause, which is happening right now. And I have been saying for the last 30 years, not only in New York, in Washington, D.C., but also United Kingdom and Haifa, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and every other state, every other countries, which made Uyghur people say, oh, we have misunderstood the Jewish people, which came from the Chinese state-run propaganda against the Israel and against the Jewish people. So for the last 3 years, I have seen so much the thanks and gratitude from the Uyghur community to Jewish people. There are 3 lines which came from the Uyghur people. I would like to read it to you, because we have been running the Uyghur edition of Uyghur Times, which we run, cover the situation in 8 languages, but Uyghur community could understand what the Uyghur Jewish people doing for the Uyghur people. Some of them said like this. Hamid from Dolan, Washington, D.C., he said, Jewish people are the people who stood up for Uyghurs in large numbers. We really don't forget what they have been doing for us, what they have done for us. So this is from Hamid in Washington, D.C. There is a line from Ablet in Turkey. He said, Jewish people can mobilize more people, and also they can put big pressure on the Chinese government to stop this genocide. Another line reads from Australia, 𝐇𝐚𝐧𝐮𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐡. He said, "We learn a lot from Jewish people. Their spirit to struggle for existence and the thrive and contribution to the world," just as I said like that. Another one, Amine, she's from Turkey. She said, "Now Jewish people are seeing the weakening point of Uyghur people, but I wish the Jewish people could be able to see the best part of the Uyghur people when we were in Uyghur region, our culture and our the developed part and civilized part, everything that we have been enjoying. One day, I hope we could have big relationship and friendship with Jewish people." Amine said this in Uyghur comment under a news that Jewish rabbi spoke for Uyghurs. So this is the third point that connect, the fourth point that connects the Uyghur people with Jewish community. My last point is that the number one thing at this point for Uyghurs and the people who concerns about the situation is to stop the genocide. As a people, most of us who are living in diaspora, they even don't want to talk about how to develop the diaspora in cultural, economic, or other way, because they don't want to divert their attention from the ongoing genocide. Even they are willing to develop economically, financially, structurally, everything, but they want to focus on stop this genocide. And your support, every word, every protest, every poster, every post on social media is big and a great inspiration for us. We are learning a lot from you. And yes, we are one of the most resilient people against the most powerful evil regime on earth. That is true. But the Chinese government is using its enormous power, not only economic, but also the technical power, which makes the Uyghur genocide is very different from what the Nazi Germany did against the Jewish people with the final solution. The Chinese government called it as a 𝐔𝐚𝐧𝐻𝐸, the long-term stability, which the equivalent to the final solution. So my hope, our hope, we could continue, we try to continue our efforts and make a big impact on this very great, most splendid cause on the planet at the moment. You could never regret when we became free that you have never done any wrong thing to save the most great people on the planet. Yes, that's my last point. Toda Rabba, that's great event, and I thank 𝐒𝐲𝐠 and GMUF. Thank you so much.
Toda Rabba to you, Tahir. Thank you so much for these powerful words that you share with all of us today. I'm Miki. I'm from Barcelona, currently sitting in Budapest, and I'm the program and outreach officer for the European Union of Jewish Students. And tonight I'm humbled to introduce to Edwin Shaker. He is a London-based international businessman with a wide range of educational, communal, and charitable involvements. Edwin grew up in Baghdad as part of the Dwi-Life Jewish community, and in 1971 was granted asylum in the UK. He's a public speaker and an activist on the Middle East issues, particularly the Jews from Arab countries, He is Vice President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Edwin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I want to salute the 𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐠 for again giving me the privilege of speaking to 160,000 young Jewish students through the offices of the European Union of Jewish Students. You guys are carrying on the tradition. Jews have always led on human rights, have always never stood silent in front of the mighty. They did that because they had the experience themselves over 3,000 years. But you guys are fortunate, this generation, that you have not experienced government-led anti-Semitism or genocide. Yet you are standing the test and you are honoring our name as leaders of the human rights issues. I am privileged you've put me in a panel with two iconic Jewish figures, Professor Erwin Kotler and Ruth Messenger. To have you both on this event is an honor for the event itself and for this issue. But most importantly, I want to salute you guys. You, the brave Uyghurs, Rayhan, Rahima, Mustafa, and Tahir. Like Professor Kotler said, there is nothing like an eyewitness testimony. I know how painful it is to relive it. I know what sacrifices you gave with your families, with your children, with your brothers, and with your parents. But you have no choice. On your shoulders fall the responsibility of saving your people. And the history will record that for you. 22 centuries ago, Antiochus, one of the leaders of the Alexander Empire, the Greek Empire, decided to force the pace of Hellenization. He forbade Jews from practicing their religion. And the similarity here is he had nothing against Jews. Guys, you can live, just give up your faith, just give up your belief. And I believe this is where you are, not just like the Maccabees did, refusing to do that. You will not give up your faith. It's apt that we do this event over Hanukkah. Hanukkah, as opposed to other Jewish festivals, is a very public figure. It's a mitzvah, it's a commandment that we tell the world about it. This last week I was in Dubai and had a huge menorah in the opposite Burj Khalifa, and we were dancing and singing and making this public. Just before I came here, I dressed a light candling thing in Iraq, in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan. Public. Now, normally our festivals are private. We do that in synagogues. We sit on New Year around a table. We sit on Pesach around table with our families. So why? What is the difference in Hanukkah? Why do we want to tell the world? Why do we want to put the menorah outside in the window? Rabbi Soloveitchik, the great Rabbi Soloveitchik of the 20th century says, according to Rashi, the declaration of the actual miracle of Hanukkah is a universal in its scope. We narrate the story to all humankind. The late Lord Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory says, Hanukkah is about the freedom to be true to what we believe without denying the freedom of those who believe otherwise. It is about lighting our candle while not being threatened by or threatening anyone else's candle. Like the Maccabees, most people want the right to pray to God in their own way. This right is called freedom of religion. The spirit of Hanukkah, the festival of lights, is shared by all people who love freedom. Rabbi Sachs says that people in the 21st century are being murdered, terrorized, victimized, intimidated, and robbed of their liberties because of the way they worship God is a moral outrage, a political scandal, and a desecration of faith itself. Rabbi Mervis yesterday compared it with the struggle in the Soviet Union for the freedom of the Jewish people, and in South Africa against the apartheid, the mighty apartheid. Our own Board of Deputies of British Jews led this in the UK. We held, before anyone made it public, we held a major event in the British Parliament under the title Warning for Humanity. Our President, Marie van der Zyl, was the first lady there who publicly shouted that a genocide is happening. I want to finish by quoting Elie Wiesel, like everyone else did. Elie Wiesel says, "Let us remember what hurts the victim most is not the cruelty of the oppressor, but the silence of the bystander." My sisters and my brothers, we will stay silent no more.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to all the speakers. This was such an unbelievably powerful, inspiring event. I personally can really not thank you enough for joining us and being with us, and really making the special night of Hanukkah very, very special, the last night of Hanukkah, but also very, very powerful. And I think it was a strong call to action, because that is, I think, what we should take away from this. That we have to act, that we have to do something, that we as Jews, as a people who knows how it feels to face genocide, to face statelessness in our history, that also means that we have a special responsibility to stand up if another people faces genocide. That means that we have to ensure that another people never again stands alone in the face of genocide, as we have so many times. So I really want to urge everyone who has watched today and who will watch in the next days to get active, to go out in the street, to get involved, to call their representatives, to join a demonstration. Because the fight for human rights and for Jewish rights, and especially for Uyghur rights, is one fight. And in that spirit, we have to stand up and act and stop the Uyghur genocide, because never again is indeed right now. So thank you very much, and over to you, Amitai.
Yes, everyone, and I want to welcome everyone to please visit the websites and social media accounts of everyone who spoke here, both their individual accounts and the organizations that they represent. I want to conclude with one thought. According to certain Jewish traditions, the period of time in which we stand judged before God and that our judgment is sealed is actually not between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but it's actually between Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, and Hanukkah. And so today, why in that moment where we're staring at lights, even if they are small lights amidst a great darkness, is that the moment in which our fate is sealed? It's because it's our duty in order to make sure that what is dark does not remain dark, does not remain without light. And I pray that today on this Hanukkah, at the end of Hanukkah, as our lights have increased from day to day, that they continue to, and as we foster greater and deeper Jewish-Uyghur solidarity. And I hope to hear from you all soon and work with you all soon. Yet again, once again, thank you to all of the speakers, and everyone have a Chag Sameach, and we will meet again very soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for this great event.
Thank you so much, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
joining and organizing.
Thank you so much.